I'm Steve Johnson, News Director for theDove TV. Check out our other videos and visit our website at thedove.us. Thanks.
This special session is well underway, and this is the second of these special sessions, the first one that's now been done since they have made it a law to have a special session every even year. They go into special session up in Salem for 5 weeks. It was meant to be a mid-course correction. Turned out to be a full-blown session. So let's get a read on what's happening up there with all our legislators, and we're delighted to Skype in our good friend, Representative Dennis Richardson, who's also a candidate for governor. Hello, Mr. Representative. How you doing?
Good morning. Things are kind of quiet this early in the morning, but they'll be picking up in just a few minutes.
What's happening up there? What's on the agenda? What do you think's going to get it through?
Well, it's hard to know what's going to actually get through. The most controversial issues are the marijuana bills, whether or not cities will be able to opt out of having dispensaries in their own boundaries. Also, there's an ongoing issue on guns, whether or not there's going to be expanded background checks. I don't think that's going to go anywhere, but you know, it always could. There's also the issue of the CRC, the Columbia River Crossing, and that is, you know, this ongoing project to build a new bridge that would have light rail on it and take the light rail to Vancouver, where the majority of the people don't want it. So it's kind of our Portland group saying, we really think that you should have it, and we're going to try and foist it on you, and then charge commuters a fee to pay for it, a toll across the new bridge. That's a big issue that is really affecting Portland. There's also this issue about liquor privatization. Should we stay with our system where the state has liquor stores, or should we open it up where the movement is for large, big box stores over 10,000 square feet? You know, the Costco's and the bigger stores, they would have hard liquor as well as beer and wine, but smaller stores would not be able to do that. So anyway, that is one of the issues that is currently being discussed as well.
Wow. Back to the Columbia River Bridge. Is the governor pushing this?
Yes. Yeah. The legislature put in certain requirements that said if we don't have each of these 11 requirements met, this project is done. It's dead in its current form. And so one of those requirements was that the state of Washington had to agree by last September that they would pay half of all the costs, you know, the same amount that Oregon would pay.
Right.
But anyway, they voted no to do that, and so the project was down. It was not going to go forward. But the governor said, well, wait a second, I really think it's a good idea. Even though the representatives from the legislature don't, I think that we should push forward and go it alone. And I think that's a huge mistake for a number of reasons, not the least of which is this is a big project. It would be like a sponge that would absorb all of the available debt for highway and freeway and road projects, bridge projects for the next 10 years, all of that one project. I think it's bad for the rest of the state, and it's a bad designed bridge.
I have an addendum. If it gets to the committee, I got something for you to suggest, and that is, since Washington won't participate, anybody that doesn't have an Oregon license plate pays a toll. Oregons get to go across it free.
Well, if you were king, that could happen, but we do have full faith in credit rules and tax other people.
Oh, it's too practical. It won't work. All right, what's happening with Cover Oregon?
Cover Oregon is just continuing to be one revelation after another of abuse, waste, and a failure of leadership. As of this week, on Thursday, we're going to have a press conference in Medford with Greg Walden. He and I have been working together. I don't know if you saw the last newsletter I did where I actually linked into what's happening with Cover Oregon, and then we had a petition, and the petition at the end were for Oregonians saying, if you think that we should have a federal audit, the GAO audit of Cover Oregon, then just click and come onto this petition. So I had over 4,500 Oregonians that have done that. And by the way, any that would still like to do it, I'd like to have as many as possible to give to Greg Walden before Thursday. But Congressman Walden has been working with the GAO, explaining that this is a broad request from all over the state of Oregon, and it looks like it's going to happen. So watch Thursday for an announcement, a press announcement in Medford with Greg Walden and myself.
All right, Steve will be there.
Well, I'm interested about talking a little bit about the marijuana legislation proposal, because there hasn't been a whole lot of discussion about this, about the cities being able to opt out of it. What is actually proposed, and what do you think?
Well, it's basically, we passed a law saying that there can be dispensaries for medical marijuana. What we had before then is people that would get their cards, and if they really did have a medical issue, they'd have to go out and buy their marijuana on the street, or they would have to grow it themselves. And there's a lot of people, elderly especially, that just didn't want to do that. And so these dispensaries, this network was set up, but there's a lot of cities that don't want that because it attracts not just folks that want medical marijuana cards. And so this bill would give cities the ability to opt out if they did not want to have that kind of a business within their boundaries.
Do you think that'll pass?
I hope it does. I think that cities ought to be able to make that kind of decision.
Didn't Jacksonville do that?
And Medford, too.
You know, I'm not clear on what each of the cities down there has done. I've been so focused on what's going on up here.
I think they have decided to do that.
Well, the other thing about the gun sales, you mentioned that briefly, the background checks. That's kind of one of those difficult things to get passed in Oregon, but what is the proposal, and what do you think?
Well, the proposal is that you would have to have background checks on more and more people, and really what it's requiring is background checks on people that don't break the law. I mean, and if they don't do the right kind of background checks, you're making them lawbreakers. Nobody thinks that a felon is going to go and get a background check, you know, and they're going to get their guns and they're going to get it off the street through drug dealers and others, but they're or stealing them, but they're not going to go for a background check. And so there's concerns about it. One is that if there's not a log being maintained, why do you have to give the identification of the gun itself and the serial number? I mean, if it's merely a background check, you'd say this guy wants to buy a gun. But no, now we have to identify what the gun is, which specific gun it is, and yet those records are supposed to be destroyed. And so there's a lot of angst among those that think that this is really just a back way to get gun registration in. So it's being highly debated.
Okay, Dennis, before we let you go, do you see anything on the agenda there in this special session that could increase taxes?
I'm not sure of any right now. There's no discussion openly about anything that would raise taxes, but as a strategic plan, those kinds of issues would be saved until the very end.
Yeah.
And then they would be brought out in the last few days of the session and rushed through the House and the Senate and then passed, and then we would be out of here. That's the approach that the majority party would use if there was a highly controversial tax bill that was going to be proposed. All
right. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I know you're busy, and we'll see you down here for the news conference coming up with Congressman Walden.
Yes, I'm anxious to come down. It's time for us to get outside eyes to see what really went on.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Thank
Best
you very
to
much.
All right. Representative Dennis Richardson live from Salem this morning.